Okay.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to organize this Agentic Analytics meetup in New York. It's the first one we do. We've done one in Paris, one in London. So yeah, we try to like gather the communities everywhere and talk about these subjects. Maybe I'll just like start by introducing myself. So I'm Claire, I'm the co-founder of Now Labs. We are an open source company and we build an agentic analytics framework. We have almost 1,300 stars, so if you want to scan and like leave a star, that's helping a lot on distribution on our side. And so the story is, why did we start this Agentic Analytics meetup? I think the reason is what you see on the right. Like, I'm sure like all of you have explored the different solutions to do Agentic Analytics, and the possibilities are endless. Like, you have your BI tool that starts building AI features, you have your warehouse tools like Snowflake or Databricks that are doing so, a lot of text to SQL tools, all the like foundational model code. Like, basically you can find solutions everywhere. And so, I mean, I used to be a head of data. I talked to a lot of heads of data, and they're all like, we want to put Agentic Analytics in place, but we don't really know what to put in place. We don't want to pay upfront for our tool without knowing like the reliability we're going to get from that. And I figured like we need to share among like data teams what everyone is experimenting, what's working well or not. And I think like these guys have experimented a lot of things. So the goal of the meetup is really to hear from real data teams what they have built, what they have tried in terms of solution. The goal is to be like quite agnostic in terms of tools, and just to learn about like what works well or not, and to maybe like get some insights to help you like introduce that in your company. And so a word on the framework we have built. I think it's exactly this idea of like, we want data teams to be owner of the agent they are building, that they don't that they can build their context freely, that they don't like log this in a semantic layer or ontology from any like tool. And we think it's really important to do evaluation and to really measure the reliability of their agents. But we also think that not everyone has a big data team to like build an agent from scratch. So that's why we built a framework that is like open source and dedicated to agentic analytics. And basically there's a context layer, which is a file system that's going to create context on your data, and where you can create some context like documentation or plug your DBT repository, for example, if you want to add some docs from that. So this is helping you create your context, and you have full visibility on what's in here. And then there's a UI where you can deploy it to your users so that they can chat with the data. So instead of like talking to you like what it looks like, I thought I would do a demo what it looks like. So I sent you a survey to understand a bit like what you were using in terms of agentic analytics. So I'm just going to use the chat to see the results. So let's see. But disclaimer, we didn't have many respondents, so I don't know about the statistical stuff, but let's try. Okay, so I'm going to ask, do you have info on the New York City survey?
Can you make it larger, please?
Yes. So basically, the way it works is that here I have set up a context for my agent. It's still small? Yeah, wait. That's the other way around. Okay. Is it better? Yes. Yeah. So basically, I set up the agent with like one YAML file, kind of like same as you have in DBT. And I just like told him, okay, I want the data from this data set. I don't have a DBT repository here because it's like very simple data. And what it has done is that it's created automatically some empty file on the, okay, this one doesn't work. Oh yeah, this one was bugging. But yeah, it has created an empty file with a schema, a preview of the data, a profiling of the data. Okay, this one no, but basically it automatically creates an empty file of context on your data, so you don't have to do any manual work of context. That's already a heads up on your context. And then you can synchronize repository. I also added some documentation, so I added the content of the survey as an MD file. And then I have main rules.md. And this one is just like giving the full context of the agent, of like what is this project about, and also trying to orchestrate it in the file system. So here, for example, I tell it question of the surveys are in docs.survey.md, so it can navigate like the context quite easily. So if you think about it, it's kind of like when you work in cursor.code, what works really well is that the agent just like goes through your local file system and just finds the context there. And that's what we wanted to replicate. So yeah, and so here on the question, it has gone through like my context. And I guess, yeah, it tells me it has data. So I'm going to ask how many responses do we have? I know the answer is not very high, but still, let's see. So yeah, so then it goes on like execution SQL. If you're a data team, you can like investigate the answers, and if not, like whatever. Okay, so apparently Paris people were a bit more serious on like answering the survey, but we'll not comment on that.
The next game is happening.
The what?
The next game is happening.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll just then ask to create a full report on the results of the survey for New York. So then it's just like going to run a bunch of queries on the data that it has, and eventually like build a full report on the data that you have. So yeah, so you can actually like do pretty complex deep dives because I have done like the work of context curation. I put all the question in there, so it already knows what's in the survey without even me telling anything in the question. So okay, what do we have today in the crowd? So we have, okay. It needs to stop generating first because
There's too many insights to be had.
yeah, it's like only 8 answers, but a lot of things to learn from that. Yeah, okay. So many analytics engineers, interesting. Many startups, I would say. Where is your team today with analytics agents? Okay, so POC status or scaled. Okay, so it's pretty much advanced, I would say. Not many people at the research status. And who actually uses the data agents pretty rolled out to the whole company. Tools tried. So main tools, Claude, Hex, in-house, Omni, Cortex. No, it's there. Cortex has users. Okay, and so the main blocker is how to measure the reliability and also the cost. Okay, we'll talk about that, I guess. And question on the semantic layer, useful, mandatory, no opinion. Okay, that's not very, yeah, we don't know. When do you kill your BI this year? Oh, we have a pretty ambitious squad. Cool. Well, okay, well, I think we're not going to deep dive more, but I think what I get from here is that I guess people are pretty much already advanced and like rolled out a first tool, but then maybe like there's a bottleneck on the costs and how do you at scale measure reliability and make sure there's no hallucination. So I guess that's the...
Compare against the Paris results.
You want to? Okay, yeah. Let's see. I think from what I remember, the crowd was like in the POC phase more. Oh, something is going wrong. Many bad queries now. Maybe I should not have asked that. Okay. Yeah. It's not the same schema. So yeah, the issue is always the data model.
I'm sorry.
No, it's my, but it's my data. So let's see where it gets from there. Do you have any questions maybe while it runs or no? thinking. So doing the extra mile for you. Huh?
Maybe like while we wait, I am curious, like when you design agents, like maybe to the panel, like is your audience usually the data teams or is it the business teams, like mostly?
It's the business teams, whoever's going to be asking me the questions. I work primarily in like go-to-market data too. So whenever I do anything, I want to imagine how a sales leader would be asking a question all the way down from executive to right. So I personally, when it comes to agents, like it should make sense to me. I'm an expert. But when it comes down to it, like, does it make sense to the non-technical stakeholders? That's the most important thing.
I would say the long-term vision for Clay is to have agents write code for the data scientist too, because I kind of find it just like a waste of time, honestly, in this age, right? Like if your semantic layer is defined properly, like why do I have to spend 5 minutes writing Python for every quick thing I'm trying to answer, right? And instead I'd like to teach it, basically do analytics conversationally, right? And speed up the whole process of working through some deep dive notebook, right? We don't have that just yet, but that's like kind of my long-term vision, for sure. But it's definitely that use case as well. Yeah. That's predominantly the use case, but I see it expanding like much, much further than just, like no one should be writing code anymore, basically, right? Like it's just kind of silly to be doing that, If you define this correctly, write the code to do this, that's the only code you should be writing, and then move on, right?
And you can like consume it in different like mediums. Like you can consume it inside of something like a Slack bot for just purely answering questions, and you can consume the same context and the same agent inside of an IDE or whatever environment it is that you're writing code in, and then have it just produce diffs which you can review.
Yeah.
At Ramp, I would say we also build it for like our business user, or like the people who will be asking the questions, whether it's like non-technical, like SDRs, finance to like even the CEO, like he'll be asking questions to our data analyst agent. We'll also see it in like Gorgias, like in our C-suite. We also see it like being a really good thought partner with our like expert like applied scientists, because they have like our data analyst has like the best ability to like go through all the Snowflake tables, like traverse all of like the semantic views we have. So really it's just like more powerful than like manually running your own queries.
At Gorgias, like we had like a lot of adoption, like, but it's very surprising, but like from sales team, because like pricing is like multi-product company, so it's like like the pricing for a customer. So when sales like enter the discussion, it's so much easier for them. And then at some point we like automate this like right before their call. So and that's also another example. But they can still like follow up in the thread and discuss like any point with the agent, so they can still make changes on the report. So that's another like outside of any technical persona, I would say.
Okay, so maybe like, because we started jumping on the question, but we'll do like a formal introduction, I guess. Okay, so just like to conclude, I think the conclusion is like New York City is more mature because more companies have scaled agents company-wide, and more companies have both business and data teams using it. And the tools are quite different, which is quite like accurate to what I see. Like here is more Hex and Omni, and in Paris we see a lot of Dust and Databricks. And then you have token cost here more because I guess like you scaled it more. So yeah, cool. Well, I think we're going to start the panel now. And yeah, just to conclude on that, also everything is fully open source. So if you want to try it, like go ahead and try it. Okay, so the goal of this panel is to have everyone introduce themselves, and then we're going to go into a series of questions to like go through all the topics that you have in mind. And I think like feel free to jump in and have some questions. We'll try to like keep questions a bit limited during the panel, but at the end we'll do like full Q&A. And yeah, today we have a lot of teams who built in-house agents, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see like how you built it and why also you decided to build in-house agents. So I guess I'll just like let you go one after the other, introduce yourself and tell us like what was your way into like building Agentic Analytics, what you tried, what you have now finally, and yeah, what's the current status?
Cool.
Do you want to go in order? Yeah?
Sure.
want me to go first?
Yeah.
Interestingly, I was at Vercel for about around a year and a half when we first created our internal agent. I believe that article made a couple rounds. It was actually more popular than I expected. I didn't realize how popular it was until Claire actually reached out to me and was like, hey, like, did you know about this article? I was like, oh yeah, I've read it. I didn't know so many people read about it.
Maybe I'm just a weirdo, you know?
And then from there, and primarily where I was focused on as a staff data analyst was developing the context, the semantic layer, and the guides to actually feed the agent and to make sure that it was actually accessible by all our stakeholders. With the advent of Cloud Opus 4.5, that's really when things started picking up and heating up. I think a lot of people will say like sometimes it's like it was the agent development. It was really just an increase in like the LLM, and sometimes I believe, and we deleted a lot of the context that we had with inside of it, right? You'd be surprised about the amount of the markdown files that we had were basically our guides. The amount of characters that we had from there probably decreased by 80%. And the ability of the agent to actually answer the questions because we took away those guardrails was increased even more. But so that's one of the things that was really interesting across working there at Vercel. And obviously, you can kind of see that I also have Hex now on top of my name. So I have since defected in the last like 4 weeks. So I've transferred to Hex, just due to the fact that with my time, building internal, analytics agents, at least when it comes from the data perspective and the person constantly like maintaining the context layer, there are some things that obviously I think that I think Hex does it really well, and I wanted to be a part of that product development. So now I'm on the data team there, dog fooding, new release features, developing the context studio that you can get out of the box. So yeah, definitely kind of relate both ways because I have kind of played on both teams so far. So I'm interested to see what you guys have to think about it, and any questions that hopefully I can answer.
So I guess I'm going next. My name is Lucy. I am a software engineer at Ramp. I work on the data platform team, and more specifically, internal AI. So I'm one of the main owners, or I guess my manager would say, like, the lead on the in-house data analytics agent, which is called Ramp Research, recently shortened to Research because we released a version 2 of it. So version 1 was launched in the company in August 2025. It had a little under like 200 distinct users. It was mostly like only accessible through Slack. So people would DM it either privately or in a channel. And it was like an iterative tool called Agent that had a fixed set of like Python functions. And I'll go over this later if we have time for presentations.
Yeah.
And it like had access to the data and context, but not much more besides that. And we realized that this was a very rigid harness. Our users were moving in 2026 more towards agentic workflows instead of being stuck in Slack, because that was more of an anti-pattern like workflow, kind of going to Claude, going to Slack, getting the answer back, going back to the user from Claude. So we kind of developed, or I was working on ever since I joined Ramp like 3 months ago, like building out the V2, which is a sandboxed agent for Ramp. It has access to domain docs. We added support for a semantic layer with Snowflake. And it has access to all these endorsed tables that will like more correctly give users the answer they're looking for. We also connected it to our in-house BI tool. So this is like dashboards as code, which I'll also talk about in my presentation, but also allows like an ephemeral question, like a one-off like question and answer, to become like a workflow that's like repeatable and like persistent as an artifact. But yeah, that's a little of my overview. And I'm excited to hear everyone else.
Do you want to go ahead and like do a demo? That's
Sure.
what you wanted to do, right?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Because this way we can visualize like what everyone does, and then we can like go through the questions.
Okay. Can I connect
Yeah,
my
you can just
laptop?
like plug your laptop here.
Sorry, thank you. Okay. Let's see if this works. My USB is blocked by Ramp's policy, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that? Let me try. So,
Okay. Or
oh, okay, perfect. It works. Okay, cool. Let me make sure
Yeah, sure.
this is set up. Sorry.
you want to see? You want to copy something? Or
Yeah, taking notes.
Taking notes.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I got the wrong notes. Sorry.
Okay, I got the other one.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. Oh, sorry. Can I? Sorry, I'm gonna have to disconnect.
Oh yeah, that's better.
Okay. Works? Yes. Okay, so hello everyone. As I mentioned, my name is Lucy. I'm an engineer on the data platform team, and I work on RAMP research. And as you can see from the catchy title, the repo is the brain, or the file system, as I'll go into. So the way I want to frame this whole talk or presentation, is kind of like a detective story. So imagine Sherlock Holmes. I think this analogy is good because I think of our research analyst agent as kind of like a detective. It's an agent that you give it an input, like an investigative question, and it investigates potentially messy data, follows the clues, interprets until it can get to an answer, and gives the answer back to me, the user. So let's go through a live demo and see if RAMP research can be like Sherlock in this case. And we're going to inspect its deductive reasoning process as I go over the history of RAMP research at RAMP. So this is the case we're cracking today. This is the question. How has adoption of RAMP research evolved over time? How many questions, from which interfaces, and how many distinct people used RAMP research? Very meta, but I'm going to ask it to identify this about itself. And additionally, I'm also going to ask it to run the analysis, create a dashboard. So this is Wavedash. I'm going to go into this later, but it's our in-house BI tool. This is a persistent artifact that I wanted to give me. So throughout this presentation, hopefully it'll work, fingers crossed, but it'll give us a dashboard. It'll like load it up in the next page, as you'll see later. So I already queued up the question. Basically, how has adoption of RAMP research evolved over time? So let me just like have it run there. And basically, I put /research, which is actually one of the ways that users can interface with the research tool. It's kind of a portable skill. So as that goes on, I'm just going to talk about why the motive, like why did we build it like this way, like a brain? So, well, what are the steps that a good human data analyst actually goes through? One, you need access to the data warehouse. We configured our agent so that it has the ability to run raw SQL, and access the tables that is needed to answer the questions for the user. So the crime scene. We also need to know which tables to hit. For that, we need to know the business context, any semantic meanings, business terminology that defines what things mean, to define what the question is, that lives in domain docs. We also have a shared definition of what the metrics mean. So that's like, what does a metric mean for the ones that we need to answer for the question? And that is the semantic layer. So basically, short story is that our current V2 agent is a sandboxed agent. You can think of it like Sherlock. And as it works in the background, I'm going to go over where it started. So version 1, as I mentioned, was a prescribed workflow. We gave it the same like fixed set of 10 tools, translate jargon, read domain docs, search tables, etc. And we gave it access to a business context that lived next to the data warehouse. And the agent for every single question ran the same set of 10 like tools. And we realized 3 things. So first, the model could answer real data questions, correct text to SQL queries and answers. It also exposed the problem that it has business context, but we also need to enforce it, that it actually uses that business context before it ever touches a data warehouse. We also realized that a fixed loop, this iteration is too rigid of a harness for real analytical investigation. As our users were moving, even the non-technical ones at RAMP, everyone's using agentic workflows, and we need to meet our users where they're at. And real questions like involve more than just like the 10 same steps. So that's the idea. That's the idea of the context layer. That's the first thing we built. And I just want to be very clear that the game changer was not just a bigger model or the model name. It was grounding the agent in our definitions, in our docs, how to like phrase the subjects or our definitions before it ever touched a warehouse. And so here's what we learned very quickly. So an overview of a domain doc is markdown files, human readable, also agentic readable, and this is the dashboard, but I'll just go over there later. Finished early, which is good. So a domain doc is markdown files owned by the data owners, which were the original data analysts, the applied scientists at RAMP, and they maintain this knowledge of information. We also have so basically, we realized that similar words don't always mean the same thing, like semantically. For example, active customer. In our finance context, it means literally a business with a paid off accounts. Sorry, it's gonna ask me to sign into Snowflake. Okay. I think it's worked now. Okay, perfect. We're very secure over at Ramp. In the product world, active customer, the same term, means a business with, sorry, very secure. Okay. So it's active, so it's made a transaction in the last, okay. Okay. Hopefully that's the last of it. It's active. It's an active business with a paid account, but it also made a transaction in the last 30 days. So basically, if you have one signed paid business, but with no spend in the last 30 days, it means an active customer in the finance context, but not in the product context, how we define it. So if we're asking a question, we want to get the right answer, and the agent has to figure out which fork in the road it has to go in. So does it read the finance or product? And it decides that pretty early, so we have to make sure we ground it in the correct domain doc, so it knows how to answer the question, depending on the context. So next we have contracts. So context, if the context tells the agent what our data means, the next layer, contracts, makes that meaning governed and verifiable and unambiguous, sorry. So this is where we've migrated onto a semantic layer, for example, Snowflake. So our agent can now choose a data source by meaning, not just guessing at a table name, whatever matches the literal words. So here is going back to our question, how is adoption of Ramp Research evolved? We can see that the agent should have found the semantic view, Ramp Research usage, that is like kind of built to answer questions around adoption. And the idea is that it exposes dimensions, facts, and governed metrics, so deterministic rules, that will always let the agent answer the same, like questions such as, how many questions have Ramp Research gotten? How many surfaces? How many distinct people in a single like unified table? So the agent can never derive the definition in a different way. It always lives in the semantic view deterministically, not in the agent's mind. That's the definition of these things. So people ask, like sometimes, do we need domain docs and semantic views? And honestly, that is an ongoing discussion at Ramp. But I would say they fulfill different purposes. So domain docs, as I mentioned, are markdown files. They're human readable, maintained by humans, our experts, and they go over what the data means. It's the business framing. It's separating active customers in the product sense versus the finance sense. And any rules, caveats, etc. Semantic views are the modeled layer. They are the agentic readable layer, and it's a deterministic way to build in rules and definitions like the dimensions and facts, etc. So in our story or analogy of the Ramp Research Detective, the domain docs are the map that points it to the right like subject or neighborhood, and the semantic view is the exact address. So it always ends up in the same place every time. So then the brain. So you combine all of this together, context, contracts, and our own BI tool, which I'll get to, but we have various dashboards that we use at Ramp. And you combine it into one repo that the agent inherits in every single session. And the key word here is portable. So the agent has a file system, and it can be transferred across a bunch of different interfaces wherever our users want to interact, whether it's a local Cloud Code terminal like I demonstrated, or Slack, or etc. Yeah, so basically Sherlock can walk into every case with the entire evidence already pinned up for it. And all the tools it can need. So here's the thing, we actually didn't need to invent this. We already had a background coding agent that our engineers use day to day. It had all the context files, a traceable log, everything you needed to create PRs. This is a sandboxed agent that was pointed at repo, and we thought that this was a very good pattern, so we aligned with it early. So pre-compiling everything, including the domain docs, information about semantic views, and our dashboard information, basically it makes it trivially easy for the agent to then go around and explore safely later on to get to the correct answer. So this is the shift. Version 1 proved the demands, but it was a fixed 10-tool loop, too rigid for real investigations in today's worlds. Version 2 reused the same dev sandbox pattern that our engineers at Ramp were already using. And as even non-technical users were adopting these agentic workflows, we actually made the harness less rigid to meet our users where they were. So yeah, we have this cumulative effect of one brain being the file system, many different interfaces, entry points to get to it. So we have at research, you can still go on Slack if you want, get a nicely formatted answer with the help of gate 2, which is a pre-query gates. You can also do /research, which is a portable skill you can access from anywhere. Claude Code for employees at Ramp, and Claude Code in the terminal as I just demonstrated. So we also have, so we basically have these different like entry points, and we make sure to inject things that are like a general pattern, like purposeful, like across all different like research sessions. And those include things like these guarantees, like everything from here on. Pre-query gates, we want to make sure it reads a relevant doc first before it hits the data warehouse, because we found that an agent always more consistently is wrong if it doesn't read the business context before it tries to find a table that is relevant. Another one is formatting Slack answer. Another one is verifying tables are correct. And then it hits the docs and semantic layers, and then the SQL and trace, which is auditable, and it shapes the answer depending on what the user might want, whether it's a Slack reply, a charts, a written report, or a full dashboard. Yeah, so this is basically our BI tool, Wavedash. And the idea is that an ephemeral answer is good, but a persistent one is better. So that's where Wavedash comes in. It's essentially the same design pattern. It's repo or file system as a brain. We have, Wavedash is just composed of a few files that are like agent first. It's like readable by an agent. It has a config, a YAML, templated SQL, dashboard like in React. And it's version controlled as a repo deployed as apps, so you can just share it with people very easily within the company. And each dashboard can also be converted into semantic markdown files. So you can point a research agent, for example, at it, and it can read the exact SQL queries that like gave it the dashboard visuals. That's the LLMs.txt, and every dashboard has that, which makes things agent first. It's also governed by the same stack. It reads the same Snowflake tables, dbt models as Research Agent does. So everything lives in the same ecosystem. Everything's accessible, full stack. This is a real Wavedash dashboard built and deployed in code. This is for Glass usage. Glass is our in-house, basically fully configured AI workspace for Ramp employees. Yeah, and here we can see like the /research tool, or the skill, is actually the highest used in all of Ramp, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and the best thing is that we can actually point the research agent at this, and it can create like human readable artifacts like Slack DM, a weekly drumbeat that will send to our Slack engineering channel. It'll be like, these are the usage trends. This is what I've realized. This is maybe a point that we can like expand to. So that's a cool way to like create products on top of products. Yeah, so one question, then it just keeps working for you. And as you can tell, like adoption metric here, this is the dashboard that has spun up on its own, which is pretty cool, from like a single natural language query to like a whole dashboard. And it would be updated every time there's new data rolling in, because the background is just reading from, our like tables. Yeah, it's pretty cool because it also like kills two birds with one stone. I can just talk about the adoption metrics. We see this pretty cool like color-coded Slack kind of deprecated and then moving towards Glass, or which is like our skill, usage. So we see like more people are moving towards like, agentic workflows and using skills and stuff like that. We also see the distinct number of people using Ramp or research increasing since it was launched at 2025. Yeah, and distinct people by surface. Yeah, this is a pretty cool breakdown. And the best of all, you can persist it. You can build more products on top of it. Like these weekly drumbeats, cost, usage, failure information, or like you can also do meeting prep brief, which, as I've mentioned, a cool fact is that 6 out of 7 of our last board deck for the C-suite employees or C-suite board members at Ramp were internal dashboards that were generated by research and Wavedash, which is our internal BI tool. Yeah, so basically, case closed. The model writes the SQL, the repo is the brain, and Sherlock cracked the case. Yeah, and then this is another cool demo, I thought, of research working. And this is a question. Basically, let me see. So we published this on our Ramp economics blog by a member of the data team, Ara. And then the question was, using the Ramp AI index definition across US businesses, did Anthropic or OpenAI have a higher share of businesses paying business is paying for each vendor, and what month did Anthropic first overtake OpenAI? So I asked that question exactly to, let's watch it again. To the 3 interfaces that we have. This is Glass, which is using the Slash research skill. This is Claude Code Harness. This is Inspect UI. And you see that this one, and this is like pretty real time, like maybe 1.2x speed, but it got the answer really quickly in Glass. 41% first overtook in May, and then 39.5%. Here, same thing. And then this one probably takes a little bit of the longest because it's the sandbox agent. But you'll see it will reach the answer very soon. But it's cool because you can kind of see the tool call traces. Yeah. Okay, so that's it.
Cool. Well, thanks for
Feel free to ask me
There's a lot
later.
of questions to go through, but
sorry, this was like long.
I think it was a lot of interesting elements, and we'll try to like discuss this together. As the next steps. Do you want to go next, Antoine? Oh, you? I am. You want? Okay. As you want.
Hi everyone, so I'm Antoine. I've been working at Gorgias for 3 years now, so welcome to our New York office.
Thanks for hosting us.
I moved here like 9 months ago from Paris, and I'm gonna show some learnings about like how we built agents for data analytics at Gorgias for 2 years. I did just a very short slide to introduce like what's an agent, because I was not sure like anyone would present or like would be like small education like slide. So basically, just to make sure like it's clear for everyone, it's just a loop with an LM here that does like either a tool call or either a response. So basically, you put like a system prompt saying like you are a data analyst, help this employee with these questions, and then you just like put the question of the person, then you put it in the LM, and then the LM has exposed some tools that you can call, and then either it outputs like a tool call like this, like it's the standard format for most like frameworks, and then when it feels like he had enough iterations based on the goal, he output a response, and then that's the end of the loop. So it's just like a very short recap. So this one. So today at Gorgias, we use Cortex. It's not the Snowflake, it's the one we built in the house.
Nice name.
Yeah.
Who picked it
No,
first?
we're not trying to steal it. But yeah, today it's like, it's 97% of the companies using it. It's like answering like 4,000 questions per week. And we have other surfaces than agents now, like for example, like MCP that is leveraging the context layer. But yeah, it's been like a very like a transformative for the company. And we started like 2 years ago. It took like 3 attempts to get there, so it was a lot of like a iteration. We started back in June 2024. And then at that time, we had a lot of limitations, like due to the LMs itself. So as you know, like context windows were very much smaller. And it was also very popular to build like RAG systems. So meaning like you would embed the documents in a database. So in our case, we were using Quadrant. And then we would ingest everything we could. So we started with the DBT models documentation. We had like the data catalog, Notion docs. We would put everything through a tool called Vana. And that was an open source kind of solution to embed easily in Quadrant. And then we would just add a flow where someone from Slack would ask questions like this, like, oh, where is it stored in our database? And then the agent would answer, trying his best to find the relevant documentation and just like spit out a format that would make sense for the user. And it's another example here where we ask like, what kind of table should I use to do this? So it was not text to SQL, it was more like data discovery, but that was the first step for us, so 2 years ago. And of course, it was a terrible solution, no adoption. No one wants to use this because it's not useful, like a search bar is doing the same thing. especially like for open metadata. It's Elasticsearch, so you can have like the same feature. But we realized the importance of like having a context and also having something that is easier for people to contribute and collaborate on. Because like the context, it's everything, but it also needs to be like easy to onboard non-technical people on it. Like if it's just like a repo, I mean at that time like that was more difficult before Cloud era. So the decision we made for the second iteration was to buy it. So we bought a tool called Dot, which is basically a SaaS that would just have like a small agent exposed that could do like SQL writing and run on top of your warehouse. And you could like configure like your context layer through nodes, so markdown files here, and you could choose to expose it. So it would have like small answers like this. So it would only act on Slack. The only interface was Slack. It could do some basic dashboarding in it, but that was very limited. But we had adoption this time, so it was great. It was approximately like 100 questions a day answered. So at least that was something that started to be useful. So that was like November 2024 through 2025. And then we realized we're so locked in. Like we can't do dashboarding in our BI tool. We can't do like reports in Notion. We can't open PRs to fix the context itself. We cannot connect to any other surfaces. So that's why we decided, oh, we're so locked in, we need to rebuild it. And that's what we did. I mean, Claude did it. So we used LangGraph, the framework from LangChain, LangSmith for tracing. So we have observability and we can debug its own traces because the agent would have access to its own past traces. So you can ask like questions about like what type of other people, like other similar question did people ask, and figure out like based on all your traces, find ways to optimize your context layer. And then of course the context layer that we fully imported from Dot. So we just took back the context layer we have stored in Dot, and then we rebuilt on own. At first we started only using like DBT features, so it would be like just embed in the description of the model, and then we started something that is way more similar to what Lucy was explaining about like separating the domain knowledge to the modeling itself, like the views that the agent has access to. And here is like a very short demo of like Cortex creating a dashboard in Metabase. So we're self-hosting Metabase, and because it's very like open source and like just standard SQL, it's very easy for the agent to get taught how to build dashboards in Metabase, and we just plugged in an MCP that we built internally to the agent. We grew up like the usage of Cortex outside of only like analytics and Slack surface, and into like a full internal AI platform. So that's what we're building now. So designers can access it in Figma, like tracking like what is the usage of this button, for example, like this feature from the product, straight from their design system. You can have like surface in linear, you can tag it. It has access to all our production logs, so you can do some coupling from like the log history and the warehouse, for example, like if you store any analytics large scale, probably in your warehouse. And then we built this context system where it's very easy for someone to read the actual context and contribute to it for non-technical people. So on top of it, we built automations, agents, apps, artifacts, skills, memory, eval system right into it. And I'm just going to show you this, the organic growth. So we started in January 2026 deploying Cortex, and it took like 5 months to reach the full company. And then we shipped the MCP, which is like the cloud surface, like Lucy was showing, and we're also like now building like plugins and more embedded system on the computer, so it's faster. But yeah, so the learning was like the context layer was the single biggest investment we had to do, simplifying our data models, making like clear definition, disambiguation of concepts in domains, and having an agent that is very easy to extend, because with that, for example, we're very limited. And yeah, it's quite successful so far. I can show you a bit about our context. So maybe to make more sense. So it's like this at Gorgias. This is the graph view of it. So it's kind of like what Lucy was explaining. We have an Explorer agent that has access to this system. So it's a file system as well that we compile, and we put it in the agent sandbox. And then he can just like grep, but he has like he has tools and he has ways to do the grep that makes it like he's forced to do it like through nodes before going deeper on any domain. And we ensure like disambiguation from this. Like for example, yeah, anything about like what is a customer in terms of like product versus in terms of like revenue or this kind of like situation. But I just wanted to show you like in a visual way of what it is, and when you open it, so that's how it's defined. And then we have like example, like one-shot queries as well that we put on the context. So it's kind of long. We're not editing it from here, but it's just a way to visualize it. And we have the same for skills. So we give agent skills. So that's what we have. And in terms of like the platform itself, I can show you real quick. So this is mine. We have like so the skills of the company that are accessible from here, and you can contribute directly. Under the hood, it's just like gonna create a PR that is evaluated in a CI, and if we feel like the disambiguation is good for the context, for example, and fit the requirements of like having enough like examples or yeah, I can show you an example. Yeah, here. It's auto merge, so there's no review required. It's like an LLM that reviews the PR, and so that's for this. And for automations, we have a lot of automations that people set up. Like I was talking about, like sales, for example. People they're interested in like knowing what's the status of their pipe, or like creating like a weekly summary of what's happening. For example, this one is it. So yeah, we have like this kind of automations, and we built also like some tracing. So maybe I can show you this. Yeah, it's a small example of a conversation. So this one was happening on Slack, but I can still access it from our UI. And here, I don't know if it's gonna work, but we built like some kind of like tracing also on top of the Langsmith logs. So it's more user friendly to debug it, because we feel like for even like for analytics engineers, sorry, the Langsmith UI for debugging traces was way too complicated, and it's not showing also like the, for example, the SQL that is run in a nice way, because it doesn't know about your tools. So I don't know if I can show you an example. Yeah, no, it's getting no. Yeah, SQL we run it this way, so it's better for QA. So yeah, that's also another part. But we release apps as well. Like you can build apps with Cortex, and they're hosted here. So people build like Cockpit, for example, build crazy stuff. I don't know what they're doing. Honestly, I don't know. It's going a bit far. But like yeah, people building stuff inside the Cortex. No, it's great. It's great. But yeah, that's most of it. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Thanks. Thanks for the presentation. Okay, well, last team.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Pranav. I'm an engineer on the data team at Clay. I just joined the team like a couple of months ago, where we started to have the idea of like really taking on Agentic Analytics and like making it a core work stream. We've tried a bunch of like off-the-shelf tools before, and seen actually like reasonable like latent demand for them. Like people really like started ripping them and using it a lot. But I think we were just not seeing the level of success we wanted. And I think since then we've tried to build one, and we just kind of got to like finishing steps with it, so we're going to roll it out by lead of the company on Monday. But I think like Josh can talk you through like the broader story on like why we did it, how we did it. But like yeah, that's the TLDR.
Cool. Yeah, I'll keep it short because I know we've got
Yeah.
questions and what.
Yeah.
But I mean, like you mentioned, we're pretty nascent in our journey with the agentic stuff, right? And candidly, I was kind of I feel like it's mainly because I was a skeptic for a really long while. Like, I feel like I started like 2 years ago. You were like, "This stuff's real," and I was like, "No, it's not."
I remember. I remember
I was like,
when
"There's no way this stuff's gonna ever replace me."
Yeah,
no way.
like there was a literal moment where I walked over to Josh's desk and we downloaded Cursor together. And I wrote the whole thing.
I was like, "This is weird."
Yeah.
That's the first step. Like.
It was the first step. Yeah. But I feel like it was probably like a year ago when Compass.
Exactly.
Like
Yes.
we're pretty close with Dagster, and they kind of reached out to us and were like, "Hey, we got this new Agentic Analytics tool. We'd love you to start demoing it and using it and giving us feedback." So we started playing around with it, and I think it's pretty cool.
I think it had
it
a
was
lot
pretty
of like
interesting.
core
Yeah.
concepts, like got a lot of like core ideas as well, like good.
Yeah.
And I think it appeared to be giving really good answers.
Appeared to be. Yeah. And people got excited, and that's when we saw there really was a lot of demand for this. And this stuff was actually like pretty good, but there's probably stuff we could fix ourselves, right? And so I think it was probably the beginning of this last quarter, right? Or right 2 or 3 months ago, we were like, all right, fine. There's enough people interested in this, but we want to do this right? And so we kind of went away from the buy thing and more to the build side of things, right? And so that's when I wrangled him into the data team, pulled him over. He was doing engineering stuff somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think we kind of had some ideas as to how we wanted to build it, but candidly, we got pretty lucky in that we ran into some Vercel people. And they were like, "Hey, we like built this D0 thing, and like it's pretty bulletproof, and you should just like copy what we did." And also, hey, we're releasing this agent infra that you can build on top of, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And so that felt pretty appealing, in that
It was also pretty aligned with a lot of like stuff that people have already talked about, where I think like there were certain opinions I already had about like what we wanted the agent to do, and so had the framework kind of or any tooling kind of not complied with that. For example, we wanted it to be sandbox back, we wanted it to have readable execution, we wanted it to have the ability to define custom tools and whatnot. So I think like there was a bunch of infra work that we could have gone and done ourselves, but like we just found some, like the Vercel agent stack kind of takes care of a lot of this stuff for you. And so we were like, let's just build on top of this. So I think the end artifact is actually not too dissimilar from like what with a few. Yeah.
So basically, amounted to you had to build like the harness and the tools, and then I had to kind of build the analytics bit, the semantic layer, the context layer bit, and that's kind of how we kind of tackled it together. Basically, build the cranium and then stuff it with the stuff, right?
And then the idea would be, like I said earlier, where the brain is decoupled from the surfaces where you can consume it from. So today it's only living in Slack, but once you've kind of built a way to query data and like provide surrounding context, you can also use it in a data scientist workflow inside of like their IDE or inside of Claude Code or wherever they might want to use it.
Yeah. We'll stop there so we can get to questions.
Okay. Well, I think my first question, because like most of you decided to go to the build way, and then Nicolas, you like went another way. But like, I think the question is, how easy is it for other teams to implement that? Because like we see there's a lot of work and iteration and research on what you have done. So like, how realistic is it for a team to actually build in-house? Like, how much time does it take you to like maintain this, and how much time you spend on the context versus on the harness? And would you recommend that for everyone or some specific teams? I don't know. Maybe we'll stick to 2 people, and especially I want to hear Nicolas on that. But do you want to start, maybe, Nicolas?
Yeah, I mean, building the agent at Vercel, building all agents kind of at the beginning is really fun. It's just a fun thing to do, but you do need resources to do it, right? The data team at Vercel, I think the majority of the time, we were just dedicated to doing agent analytics and editing the semantic layer, and then when it's just in the Slack repo, right at the beginning of D0, I have no idea what my stakeholders are really asking, so I'm constantly reviewing the Slack layer itself. So we didn't have that feedback loop quite yet, like something that you had, right? And it takes iterations to understand where the gaps are inside of it. So it's not going to be something like, it is a lot of work internally, and especially for the data team. The data team goes from no longer really being a data team, right, of like how they used to be, but more just context engineering. And that's just kind of what your data team kind of just becomes. And you're just working on the product consistently throughout that. So as long as you're okay with, like, there are caveats, obviously. You get a tool, obviously, that's way more custom made for what you're doing, though, as well, which is great. Like, you have the ability to have all the context in here, define exactly the workflow that you want to have. And there's just certain things, even where, like, Hex, that I'm working at, like, you will have a little bit more capability that's tailor-made for you to create those things. But I would be lying to you if I said, like, it was easy to just create that, especially at an enterprise grade level. You may have not heard, but, like, you know, Vercel went through a little bit of that. And that was, you know, but like it was all throughout the news, right? And that was difficult too, right? Because we had those agentic infrastructures that were developed that were potentially a little bit like dubious with inside of it. And we didn't think about it, and then our agent went down for like 2 weeks, right? And so there are caveats to particular things that we would do inside of it, right? But if you have the resources and you want to do this, I would recommend building it yourself, right? Like. But it really depends, and you have to make sure that you take like a hard look at yourself in the mirror and say, do I want to dedicate the resources, potentially like 2 engineers and maybe particularly my data team, to create this thing and maintain it going in the future? That's something that you have to have that debate, right? And if not, then there's a product that I happen to work for that like, you can just go into it and plug it into it, and we think that does a pretty good job at answering these questions.
Cool. Anyone wants to add something on there?
Yeah, I can talk about like our experience. So before Claude, I think it would be like difficult to like build the full product, but now like with open source framework like LangGraph, I haven't tried like Google ADK, but it's probably the same. Like honestly, like building the first iteration on a specific domain is pretty quick. I think in like probably in a week you can have something. Because like as like Lucy was also showing the set of tools, like for the first version of the product, it's not like a crazy amount of tools. Like you just plug it to your warehouse basically, and it's gonna write like SQL. Like moderns, like frontier models, LMs, they can definitely write good SQL. If you have like normal like data modeling, like modeling that makes a bit of sense, you can definitely like have good results. So the easiest is just to scope it to like a restrained domain. That's what we did. We started with like revenue because that's what we have so many questions. So if you take like one specific domain and use a framework, you can go pretty fast. But then comes the question of the UI. That's what we got stuck with the first iteration. Then now it's great, but like then it's because we have people, like we're 2.5 people working on this on the full AI platform. That's why we can ship more. But like if you're alone, like it's probably easier to start with one single like interface. Maybe Slack is the best for organic growth as well, because people can collaborate on the same thread, for example. But otherwise you just like start with Neo. I mean, like it's easy, it's plug and play. You just put your context and you have it live in Slack. So I don't think it's like crazy amount of work if you go to like a small domain. Like as I was saying, like if you grow to what kind of question people can ask, then of course like it's much more like investment. Like we had to build like all this graph I showed, but like all the possible domain, and we try to cover as much as we can, but like then it's like it takes a full team to review the context outside of the people building the tool.
Yeah.
I think like there's like a lot of truth in what you said in terms of like security, because I think people underestimate how catastrophic it can be for having your like warehouse just like living on an endpoint publicly, and people are just like hurrying away, like looking at your ARR. So I think like there's definitely a lot of truth in that, and I think that was one of the things that was making me nervous, especially as I kind of took to what you're saying, which is like I didn't really manually write all this code, like GPT 5.5 extra high wrote it, but like there's like layers at which you're writing the code, and so I think like it's cool that in some ways we're like early to doing agentic analytics, but we're kind of late in agents broadly. Or like we're kind of mature in where agents are already, and so a lot of people have done a lot of the thinking around this, where like, oh, your API key shouldn't be living in your sandbox in your model context, or like what kind of boundary should exist between the network layer and your like agent. And so I like to think about it in the way where, yes, you're writing a lot of code and you want to maintain most of the code that users consume, but how much of the code can you offload to other people? And so like if you were gonna write like 14,000 lines of tests, can somebody else write them and you can just import the library? And I think like that's kind of the approach that I've taken, where it's like there's enough people doing open source work, look at what the best thing is with the most adoption, and just kind of keep that up to date, and like make sure you're system designing with like security in mind. Because I think that's where most of the dangers happen in like internal development.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like that's a lot of commentary on the building of the agent, but to your point, to be fair, we haven't released this, but this is what I speculate the world's going to look like once we release this, and that is, to your point, like you're going to have to do a lot of work on updating the context and the semantic layer, like pretty regularly, right? You can imagine a world where analytics engineers' jobs are to ship new DBT models, and every time they ship a new DBT model, they're shipping an update to the semantic and the context layer, and ensuring that like LLMs can reason accurately across that thing, right? And that sounds painful, but like I guess my thought would be like that semantic and context layer is actually, those updates are probably something AI can write for the most part. It can look at what you did and understand that work session you just had with Cursor or Claude and be like, this is what we did, this is the things you clearly thought about while doing this. Like, let me just codify that in the semantic and context layer, right? And then the other point would be like, I don't know, like every data team kind of has to do the shit work. And like, this is just us taking the kind of shit work that existed post like data model and dashboarding release and just moving it forward, right? And hopefully freeing us up on the backside related to like oh, you released this dashboard and now I have like 10 questions on top of it, right? Or, oh, you released this dashboard and now I want like this like filter edited. In this post LLMs world, right? That turns into, oh, those questions are actually answerable via LLMs, right? You can imagine someone just sitting looking at a dashboard and then being like, I have this thought, let me go talk to the LLM right next to this. You can do that, right? And then in this really, really awesome world, right, of this like code first dashboarding, someone decides they want to slightly tweak something on that dashboard. Okay, let me just go talk to Monty, our analytics bot, and submit a PR to make that tiny tweak to that dashboard, right? And now data team no longer has to be doing the grunt work. And actually, I think they get to do the interesting work, right? Like, think through the modeling, think through like the gotchas and the whatnots, and just kind of cement that logic into that layer, and then kind of hopefully release and forget it. Yeah. I'm sure I'll eat my words. I'm sure it must be long to say, and it'll be very painful, but that's my hope, right? That's my vision right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have another topic that we haven't talked about yet too much.
Question on the semantic.
I'm going to get back to semantics later. Like it's definitely on the list. So if you can hold the question after. But it's going to be linked to the question. So we haven't talked so much about reliability. Like maybe we haven't had time to go to that. But I have one simple question for each of you. What is the percentage of reliability of your agents?
We don't know yet. Check back in about a week.
So you don't measure it, like you don't.
No, sorry, we will be. Yeah. But I'm saying we haven't released it yet, so we're releasing it on.
But do you like do some evaluation of your agents?
Yeah, so I think like there's two kind of shapes of evaluation. There's like offline evals and there's online evals. So I think like how we're thinking about, I guess for defining those, online evals are evals that you run on production data. So like people are like really out there using your agent and like you're evaluating that trace. And then offline evals are you push a commit to your existing agent and like you run a simulated agent run and then see how it performs against like a batch of like tests that you consider are important. So I think like how we see it playing out is we let people actually just use it out in the wild, because I think our vibe check currently is that like when examined by eye, it like roughly seems like pretty good most of the time. And I know that's not actually like rigorously good. And so, but it's good enough, I think, for us to feel confident to like launch it and call it beta. Now when people like produce, like when people go ahead and generate usage on that and give us like maybe hundreds of logs to look at, we can then, we have a online observability tool which will like auto categorize failures or like people getting annoyed or like people like getting frustrated and things like that. And then also we can just like manually examine a bunch of the traces and be like, okay, it looks like there's totally a skill for this thing which didn't get triggered, or there's a catalog that, or like there's like a MD doc that had the agent read it in its trajectory, it would have totally nailed this. And then we can go and bake those in as offline evals. And then over time, this can kind of become a continuous loop where online evals expose problems, which then become offline evals, which you test on every commit.
But so your offline evals don't give you like a actual percentage of like right answers?
I don't think so. Or like, I don't know if you have interesting thoughts on it, but like, I think, I don't know if that's a useful metric to have. Like,
I think evals. Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead. I think that's it.
I think evals in the analytics world, they're kind of weird, right? Like, you know, this world of, okay, I'm going to test, like, you have these like two worlds. When you're trying to build these analytics agents, you're trying to accomplish two things. You're trying to allow like people to just look up metrics and look up very basic things, but you're also trying to enable them to go past that and almost have the LLMs create net new on top of that, right? And that first category is very easy, right? It's just like, actually LLMs are pretty good at reading a doc and being like, okay, this is probably the query I should write. And like, for the most part, evals are kind of pointless in that world, right?
And like that, I guess you can't have accuracy on. Like if I ask it ARR 10 times, it'll tell me it incorrectly like one at a time. That should basically never happen.
Yeah.
And like I think there the goal would be to be 100%. Like that should basically never be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think in the latter category, right, like, I actually don't know the real solution to that outside of defining traits you want to observe and like via LLMs, basically having LLMs infer traces, right? And so define things you know you don't want it to be doing ever, and then just have those LLMs with your observability tool, like watching for those, right? The other solution, the other alternatives, right, is you just lock down the agents and not be able to go into that like free thinking space, which I think greatly curtails the potential value of this thing, right? So there's this weird trade-off, I think, in this whole world of like, how much do you restrict what it can do, and how much does that actually restrict how helpful and beneficial it is to the business, right? And I think this may be controversial, but I think like in this new space, data people might have to step back and be like, okay, maybe actually it's okay that it sometimes gets the answer wrong if it's not going into like a board deck. And actually sometimes it's just people like looking for interesting directional insights that they're then going to build on top of, right? And develop new things from. And now obviously we don't want people generating board decks with the LLMs, but like if people just have a question and a thought and want to go explore that, like, I don't know, does it have to be that perfect? Probably not, right? And that's more of the environment I want to create with these LLMs, right?
And just create like behavioral no-nos, because I think like one example you'll see with a lot of like business users of data will be like they'll really love to create causal relationships. They're like, oh my god, this happened and this obviously means that A, like B happened because of A. And so if your agent ever in its trace is trying to like agree and like, please the user and be like, oh yeah, totally, like this happened because of it, like that's something you should absolutely punish. Like, so you can create monitors of that pretty easily, where you can have it look through a chain of thought and be like, hey, did it try to like over and on that, like I kind of developed what I call like the analytics constitution.
That's just basically a set of rules that it should always think about and like never violate, right? So like correlation to causation is like absolutely one of those. Like anytime someone tries to say like, did this cause this, it'll say, okay, I can show you like the relationship between these two things, which is very cool because I think just understanding those relationships is also very valuable. But it'll say, okay, here's that relationship, but just know like this is not actually causal, and you shouldn't do anything. But actually, like it'll basically recommend that to go run an experiment if they want to establish a causal relationship, right? And so there's a lot of that kind of stuff baked into the analytics constitution and the system prompt, where we'll basically see those common patterns and try to, you know, obviously still fulfill some type of analytical obligation, but caveat everything heavily whenever it does it, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone has a different answer with like a real number? Because I hear a lot of.
So I guess we kind of take an approach where we value like the accuracy of every answer, even sometimes over like speed of like how fast the agent can get the answer. I think because we have people like Eric Lyman, like our CEO, asking tons of questions, and we can't really like control for like who gets the best model versus the fastest model. We always want to make sure that our research data analyst gives the best answer or gives the most accurate answer. So right now we're kind of working on that scope before, you know, like making other adjustments. We're just making a specialized data agent so it can like be trusted to run that. Otherwise, people wouldn't use it. And in that case, we would have to improve it to make it actually like accurate. And I would say like we currently measure like 2 different types of like reliability like checks. We have this hard check, which is more of like an operational, like is everything working? Can the agent reach Snowflake? Can it reach the semantic tables? Can it like even like get the answer from like Slack or wherever it's like from pulling from and post it back? Like those are like smoke tests, and those are more like hard checks. So we kind of run that daily. We have an automation or just like a scheduled job that just like checks the agent's able to reach all of these like basically readiness checks. We'll go over and we're responsible for making sure that everything's accessible to the agent. It can like perform the best. All the tools are available to the detective. And then the other one is more like soft, like question or like soft reliability checks, which is the quality answer good? Is it actually answering correctly? How do we measure that? That's actually a really hard question, I think, these days, because even the data owners, like people at Ramp are like doing, and like I bet everywhere are like not really manually SQL like coding, like tables. They're just asking LLMs, and sometimes it's hard without manually inspecting the trace to see like what is the correct answer, like is this actually right, even if you're the expert in that field. So that's why like we built our evals around like more of that like idea that we're like semantic backed. Like we inspect the method, not just like the final answer. Like that can be very brittle. We also have a lot of like tables that like don't really have a point in time, like snapshot. So we can't really measure like even a like canonical query. Like even if we move to semantic models, like the model is going to change, the table it reads from will change, the tool calls will change. We have so many different interfaces. We just want to measure like a unified way of like kind of going through like the trace of the models. And that's something I'm working on for the V2 like research agent. I've actually found like really useful insights while going through it like manually, seeing where the errors are of the evals that I'm about to release, because that's what led me to like realize, oh, like the agent must read a domain doc before any like query. Oh, like the agent needs to know like context about every single semantic model, like a blurb, before being released into the semantic models. And that's what like improves their like consistency from like 50% to like 100%, and that's ultimately what we want. Because if we don't have any like trustworthy answers, like why even have a data analyst agent? So that's our like kind of view on like evals and stuff.
Just to plug kind of like what's been kind of reiterated here, there's a great talk by Izzy. He's an AI engineer at Hex. I won't really go into it that much, but it's called AI Analytics, where the tests don't matter and the points aren't real. Because essentially all the evals that you're trying to do aren't real analytics, like questions that would actually be asked within inside a context agent. So a lot of things that we're benchmarking currently tests off of and what we're doing don't really relate to analytics thought processes. It just doesn't. So you could do offline evals, and I think what kind of reiterated here, you should be able to get that 100% of the time into your semantic layer. If it gets a 9%, you just have an objectively wrong pipeline. But the question about like how do we actually make a more thoughtful process so it can make assumptions and potentially answer questions when it doesn't have things, that's more important than any of the eval tests do. So we try to document the assumptions that are made by our models. They get stored in a data repo, so you can go look at the assumptions that were made. If there's inside of a certain product itself, we are able to query those things and actually take a look at the assumptions. And if someone's asking and it's making the same assumption again and again, we should probably codify that later on, right? That's more important to me than the actual value testing that we actually do. But yeah.
You'll have to wait for a number.
I mean, I can provide a number of the reliability of my agent, so.
But it varies.
I just decided that.
Yeah. Inside of it, but like the offline eval, like it's 100%.
I think the offline evals should be like a baseline you should always have, right? Because like I agree that you expect like your corporation of like what is the RR of like currently, like you want it to be right, but I think I sleep better if I am sure that it's right and I have like a pipeline like running every day and checking that every day, because we don't know, like we could break the data model of docs. So I think having on like your top like 20 questions, 100% reliability is just the first like reassurance. And then of course you need to do like these feedback loops on online evals. And I think like that's exactly what Hanson was saying in their article. So I think we should not neglect like offline tests. And for the story, like I did offline evals on like our data sets internally, and like I started, I had like 10% reliability. So I think it's not so obvious to have like good answers on your data. Maybe it points that you have a bad data model, bad data documentation, and that's already a challenge to get offline evals to good reliability.
Well,
I
the
think.
system that we use is that we have like a context studio where we're able to like when a user expresses doubt, that's kind of how we say like something's going wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So we're able to say like, hey, someone's expressing doubt within it, because like a lot of our users are already like they're smart. They know when something's a little bit off, and if they express doubt in that, that's when the pipeline gets like flagged and we actually review it. Right. So and it's pretty easy for an LM to be like, hey, like, you know, James, you know, our CFO, like we don't actually have a CFO, but like James like came into us like, that doesn't look right. Like that's a flag for me to go in there and actually investigate it. And that's more than just running those like tests on like the 20 questions.
It's also better than like a thumbs down or whatever. It's like it's coded into what they said.
Yeah, it's coded into what they said, right? Exactly. So I mean, that's kind of how we at least approach it with inside of it, because also like actually we don't want to just ran an eval set for like your interpretation. Everyone's eval set should be unique to yourself, and we're working on developing, you know, eval set. That's why we're just not pushing it out, because the fintech eval set should be different from, you know, a SaaS, you know, a normal SaaS eval set. It's all developed for your own thing, and I'm not going to say what types you should use our platform because we don't have it. You have to develop it yourself.
On our projects, like on our agent, we have like a separate loop that run before giving the final answer that inspect the trace and look up like if the trace is very long, like he had to like cycle through the graph write a lot of SQL, then he has like a confidence score that lowers, and then the more low, then it displays a button like request review automatically on the message, so it's very obvious to the person like we're not sure, and we say like confidence score. So that's another solution outside of like a offline eval that we added, and it was very helpful for people to trust more, because like having this gradual like grading of the own behavior of the agent, I feel like makes it even more trustable for people. So that was another solution that we found.
Just to plug one last thing. It's a lot of things that you can do, like data teams create artifacts and assets, dashboards, right? There's a canonical dashboard already there. So you can just refer to the dashboard that's already been asked a bunch of times. If it is, you know, something that is really important, like ARR, right? You can just refer to that dashboard that you have and utilize the artifacts and the years of data work that your team has already built, right? Yeah. Instead of having these, you know, bespoke questions that it asks, these bespoke questions have already been answered in multiple places inside of your repo. Yeah. So you can always refer to those things that have either been, you know, upvoted, whatever you want to call it, inside your repo. Like that's why I would recommend it.
And that's how we kind of approach it too. We don't, like, I feel like it was somewhat implied by the ramp stuff is like you have a metric definition sitting in your semantic layer. We kind of flip it and we say, actually all of our data scientists have modeled metrics already, and it's sitting somewhere in a table by a bunch of different date granularities, a bunch of different dimensions. You should go check that first. Also ground yourself in the understanding of that by looking at the DBT model to understand what it looks like. And then if you can, if they're asking for something, you can just pull from that table, just pull it, right? Or go to that, or literally point them at the dashboard, right? That's already there, like you're still looking up here.
Yeah,
right?
or just pull the number from it. If it's inside of a data frame, you can pull the number.
Don't calculate anything.
Don't
Exactly.
calculate
Yeah, exactly.
I think the dumber you make your agent, the better it is.
That's right.